Think security guards can't make good money? Think again. The security industry is filled with opportunities that many overlook. Let's debunk the myths together. Guard Guide's state by state salary showdown. So there's a pervasive misconception that security work is all low paying, dredge, dead end work, like you're digging ditches or something for a minimum wage. But this is here to debunk that myth. This is what I'm doing this for. So I'm going to start with a baseline. As you see here, I'm going to start with New York State and specifically Westchester County. I am using the MIT living wage calculator by county, and I actually live in Westchester County, so I can attest that these numbers they give are accurate or fairly accurate. If they aren't, I'll point that out. So, not to waffle too long, we're going to have a baseline as 1 adult, 0 children. The living wage is $20.70. We're not going to focus on the other ones because if we don't make at least the living wage, then obviously that line of work, or rather this line of work, isn't viable. The typical expenses, food, $45.59. That's about $380 a month. That's about right. I might spend a little bit less, but you might spend a little bit more, depending on size and caloric needs and things like that. But as long as you, do your own shopping, meal prep, cook, that's about right. Medical, that's, I believe, about $67 a week. That's fairly, I'd say that's fairly standard. It's going to come out of your paycheck, out of your gross income from your employer, because it's not like we can afford, free healthcare in the richest country on earth. Anyway, housing, $16,668. I did the math already on a lot of these numbers. For this one, that's roughly $1,400 a month, and I'm not sure if that includes utilities, gas, electric, internet, but I'm gonna assume it's just rent. That's about $1,400 a month. You can find a studio, maybe even a decent 1-bedroom, although the area may not be that great. Remember, even though it's not in New York City proper, it's just north of it, and we are still in New York State, so things are expensive here. Transportation, $44.70. That's roughly $373 a month. I'm gonna do a quick check on these things to determine, if they have a legend or breakdown that tell you what's included in these, what's included in housing and transportation, because $372 is pretty low. Basic car notes in the U.S., I think the average is several hundred, 600-700, something like that. Civic, not quite sure what that is, but we'll do it. Take a quick scroll down there to take a look at it. Other, I'm guessing that includes things like, cell phone, maybe internet bills, maybe some subscriptions or entertainment. So required annual income after taxes, $36,000. Annual taxes, roughly $6,000. Let's round it up to $7,000, which is probably going to be more if you're in, say, Yonkers, which has its own, local city tax. Shouldn't be that much more. Required annual income before taxes, about $43,000. So 43,051. I could divide it by 2,000 or 2,080 hours, which is typical for someone working 40 hours a week. But the way I like to do it is I just divide it by 12 months. So that's 3,587. Divide that by 4 weeks, so that's roughly, let's say, 897. So 897, and we're going to divide that by 40 hours. So 2242. So we'll be looking for a baseline of 2242 for that, or between 2070 and 2242. So as you can see here in this breakdown, typical annual salaries, it says for protective service, which is $54,708, Now, this is going to be, they're saying it's typical for various professions in this location. I'm going to assume that's an average and not a median. So the average is going to include on the higher end things like non-contract fire safety management and corporate security, where you're doing, fairly high level, analytical security things like disaster management, etc., for your corporation. And on the low end, basic security work, maybe $15 an hour to stand in front of a Family Dollar or something, checking receipts or something. But I'd like it better if they had the median, but this is going to have to work for now. But again, we're looking for 2007 to 22 and change. So let's continue on. I have Indeed up. What? Security officer, 40,000. Where? Westchester County, New York. I'm going to have the time, last 14 days within 25 miles, and full-time status, and a minimum of 40,000 a year, which is roughly 20. So it starts on the lower end. So first off, we have full-time security sergeant. Now I'm going to give my breakdown and some insights I believe I have on a few positions that I clicked through in these listings. So problem with this one, and I don't mean to be a Debbie Downer, but I'm going to point out the bad first and then the good. So security sergeant, that's cool. It's a supervisory position. It looks good on the resume. The bad, $25.58 an hour. Okay, for any kind of management or supervisory position, they got to do better. If anybody from procedure, which I believe is formerly known as command security for those who happen to care, is that's not going to cut it. It's just not going to cut it. Bump that up to around 30 and then we can talk. I'm familiar with the area and been doing security for a while in the area, so I have an idea of which companies have which sites, and I believe Procedure has the medical center site, the Westchester Medical Center in Valhalla. So more than likely this is going to be a hospital security officer role. And again, the hospital security officer by itself is typically more in depth, it's more hands-on, it's more dangerous, and there's more accountability. So for that reason alone, not including the supervisor status, they're going to have to do way better than 25.58. 25.58 should be what they start a basic guard at that location, much less a sergeant. But again, for the purposes of the video, with the minimum being, the minimum foundation we set is 20 and the upper end being 22, this is pretty good. So it's full time. I'm going to need your guard card, New York State guard card, high school diploma. I'm going to be working every weekend. The schedule, something important to take note of, 3:30 to 11:30, which is a second shift or swing shift, If that's something you want to do or it works around your schedule, you have other obligations, then there you go. Monday, Tuesday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday are your days. You do get a weekend of sorts off, Wednesday and Thursday, although not the typical Saturday and Sunday. So a bunch of marketing copy, rainbows and bunnies and unicorns and everything's great. Come work for us. And the responsibilities, general stuff. So you're going to be doing general supervision of your subordinates, of course, as noted by the sergeant position. And in addition to that, you're going to be doing normal security officer position. Responsibilities, monitoring CCTVs, doing access control at entrances, circulate among visitors, assist with training, enforce rules, regulations, policies, do escorts, write detailed reports, provide customer assistance, secure the facility and designated areas, enforce facility and company policies, investigate and prepare reports on incidents. It's a face-to-face relief, so you're not going to be leaving early. So if somebody calls out, guess what? You're staying. That can be good or bad, depending on if you like overtime. Qualifications, like I said, you're probably going to be working in a medical facility. So you're going to have to be vaccinated, have a high school or GED, Your security guard license, they want 2 years of security experience, so you're going to have to start there as a baseline, which makes sense because if they want you to be a sergeant, they don't want somebody coming fresh off the street with no general security experience jumping into a supervisor of security officers. So they have a physical ability assessment. You're going to have to work all shifts and schedules, even though your baseline shift is 3:30 to 11:30. You're going to need some reliable transportation, just some basic stuff. And then they go on with probably their some more marketing copy. So we're going to move on to the next one. Another hospital position, New York Presbyterian, full-time, 4 to 12, another second shift, evenings, behavioral health center. So this is located in White Plains, which is really right next door to Valhalla. 24 an hour, full-time. 24 an hour is above our standard set for living wage, so that's good. You might have some money to save. Gonna need your guard card. BLS certification is, I forget exactly what it stands for. I'm not gonna look it up right now, but I believe it's just a general, CPR, AED, first aid type certification, which is pretty easy to get, especially since you'll be working in a hospital. I have no doubt that they'll give you the training there, if nothing else. Education, high school or GED. Maybe they prefer a bachelor's but don't require it. Weekends is needed, evening shift, and they have some benefits, which this isn't really a benefit. I mean, financial planning services, you could probably find a free service online, or just throw together a budget yourself on on Excel or something. Tuition reimbursement, which is pretty good. And then description, they tell you it's a hospital, what they do at hospitals, which pretty sure everybody knows, and what you're going to be doing as a security officer in the hospital, responding to emergency situations, etc., etc. Not going to spend too much time on that. Preferred criteria, bachelor's, whatever, prior security experience, required, guard card, New York State, high school diploma. Okay, here's what BLS stands for: Basic Cardiac Life Support Certification within 90 days of starting, which is essentially CPR, well, maybe not CPR, but first aid, and maybe AED. Driver's license required. And gives you some more copy. Join us. Everything's great. We got the Best Choice Employee Awards and best job ever, according to them. Good job, guys. So, again, 24 an hour, and a job like this, you'll probably get plenty of OTs, so your overtime rate will be about 36 an hour, which ain't too shabby, so you can make some money there. Moving on. Asset protection, not my wheelhouse. This is in New Jersey, which I may do a different video on that. So let's go over to, there's a lot of hospital positions available, which luck of the draw, depending on the day, depending on what's available. So I skipped past a few. Greenwich and Allied Universal, the pay is pretty good, but I imagine the requirements are going to be much, much higher. I'm more so looking for something, your basic run-of-the-mill guard can do that pays decently, just to disprove that myth, that misconception that I alluded to in the intro. So we're going to go to Burke Rehabilitation Hospital, full-time, security officer, day shift. It's also in White Plains. White Plains is a hub for a lot of business. They call it Mini Manhattan if you haven't ever been there before. So 2029, which is roughly at our living wage calculator, I believe it was at 2007, something like that, to 2375, which is within our parameters. So requirements: high school, pay So it's full time. You're going to have rotating weekends. The good thing about it, day shift, Monday to Friday. At least not including your rotating weekends. So you get some weekends off, some you won't. But day shift is good. Me particularly, I prefer day shift, so this will be right in my wheelhouse. Your mileage may vary, so patrol and inspect hospital buildings and grounds to prevent fire, theft, vandalism, illegal entry, loss of life, property, or physical harm, etc., etc. Basic security work, inspect for safety hazards, interact with individuals within the hospital, safeguard cash and checks for cashier during off hours. You're going to need your New York State driver's license, have your New York State guard card, pass a criminal check, or be eligible for your guard card. Work in all types of weather, climb, walk reasonable distance, stand for extended periods, write clear and concise reports. You're going to need a high school diploma and prior security experience, although they don't specify how much. Let's start with 6 months as a baseline. So work schedule 8 to 4. Actual offer will depend on factors, night differential experience. Okay, so I'm glad that they put that there as, as an asterisk. So you go in knowing that, this 20 to 2029 to 2375 isn't inclusive of any night differential. If you end up taking that shift, maybe they give you an additional bump depending on how many years of experience you have, or if you have any additional education or security related certificates. They might bump you up towards the higher end, which is good. So to not make this video too long, I'm going to end it here. And as you can see, just to recap, we went through several positions, all of them security, hospital security rather, oddly enough, but all well above what MIT states is the living wage for one adult, 0 children in Westchester County at $25.58 for security sergeant, $24 for a security officer evenings, and another one which is $20 to $23 depending on experience, etc., full-time day shift security officer at another healthcare facility. So I'm going to end it there, and let me know in the comments if you like the content, if you like the idea. And I plan on moving on to a different state, maybe New Jersey next, or maybe California, just to jump from coast to coast. But thanks for watching. Like and subscribe. See you next time.